Hello everyone, it's me, it's the dude Broman the Hiberian, and welcome to my stream. Today we're going to be doing some economy stuff. Now let me tell everyone that I'm live here. Excellent. Let's grab another window. There we go. That'll work for what I need. There we go. You got an ad? Oh, oh, your prime right now, dude. Yep, 2 subscribers it shows. That's Kaju and Zarnix.
Wow.
Wow. Thanks. Alright, I've almost got all my windows open at the same time so that I can like watch the videos. Which which type of vibe do you want today? Do you want WoW is great or do you want WoW Doom stuff? You subscribed just in time. There was it just went to an ad break. WoW's great. All right. videos. We don't want shorts. I think Willie has some new videos. I mean, of course, we're starting with the Paladin.
The Paladin has always been a hugely popular class within World of Warcraft, and with so many legendary figures to establish their long and storied lore, it's not hard to see why. However, when we got down to the gameplay, Paladins often found themselves being funneled into one playstyle which was accepted: healing. It's always been the Paladin meme classic. You play the righteous holy warrior who ends up going from one snazzy blue dress in phase 1 as their bis and ends up replacing it with another equally blue dress come AQ14. It would be amazing if Blizzard made another blue dress from BFD, by the way. But aside from just healing, protection suffered from a lack of taunt, mana issues, and general itemization problems, whereas Rek kind of just stood there and auto-attacked, something which they've become very familiar with since they started their journey at level 1. And come late game, that doesn't quite cut it anymore. So in Season of Discovery, the Paladin is a class that is very much in a place where it could have a few more new and fun abilities added. And, well, Blizzard have gone all out with the Paladin's toolkit and given them more than you could have possibly wished for. With all that said, let's
I'm
take a
gonna
look at the
take
known Paladin
Beacon
runes
of
up to level
Light,
25 in
uh,
Season of Discovery.
Divine Storm,
And we're
and
starting off with
Crusader
something
Strike,
very
and I'm gonna be
interesting:
a
the
shotgun and
Seal of
healer.
Martyrdom.
Think
This rune
about
was
it.
actually changed up quite significantly during the PTR, in a way
I'm
which makes
talking
this
to
part of the video worth
a guy about
redoing. It used to hit
coming and
3
playing
targets for
Warrior on
30%
Season of
weapon
Discovery
damage
with us.
and converted 2% of all damage taken to mana. This made it both attractive to rep paladins for the damage, as well as protection paladins, as you would have been able to have a bit of cleave while tanking, but also because it restored mana based on all damage taken. This new version has changed quite a bit though. Now it only hits one target for 30% weapon damage a swing, but returns 10% of the damage taken from the seal as mana. The Judgment still causes an instant 70% weapon damage, which is obviously very good, and also has the same bonus mana regeneration effect. The damage from both parts of this seal should be able to crit as well, so it will still be pretty good damage, but on single target, it's going to be competing now with Seal of Command, and there is also another rune on your chest that will now easily outpace this on AoE. I think whether this is taken really depends on how it compares with Seal of Command, because to be honest, it's not going to be restoring a ton of mana, because it's only damage received from the seal now, not all damage. There is also the odd chance that we could be getting seal twisting in Season of Discovery as well. Seal twisting was something which was popularized during TBC for Retribution Paladins, and it involved changing between Seal of Command and Seal of Blood just as a melee swing landed, which would give you a chance to proc both on hit effects from your seals at the same time. I played a ret for a good portion of TBC and I really liked this mechanic. I thought it added a lot to ret's gameplay, so I'd be down to see this make a return. However, I do find that people either really love or hate this mechanic, but when everything lines up with Wind Fury procs and you hit about 6 times in one global, it just feels good to pull off. I'd take it over how Ret plays in Wrath any day, but that is just me. Anyways, speaking of Wrath, here's our next chest rune, Divine Storm. Instantly hit 4 nearby targets for high damage, and then heal 3 party or raid members. And suddenly no Ret wants to take Seal of the Martyr anymore. We all already know how good this ability is, and AoE was a weak point for Ret Paladins. I mean, to be fair, the whole spec was a bit of a weak point in PvE. But anyway, you get Divine Storm if you want to take it. In my opinion, this ability is a bit on the powerful side for vanilla, and just feels as though it's better Whirlwind. But hey, it's a seasonal server, we'll see how it goes. Next is Horn of Lordaeron, the first of several abilities that will have Shaman players saying, hey, that looks familiar. So it's basically what Strength of Earth Totem became since TBC, or what Horn of Winter does in Wrath of the Lich King. In vanilla terms, it's Strength of Earth and Grace of Air on one button. However, it is exclusive with Blessing of Might. Saying that, this is just better Blessing of Might. Primary stat scale with Kings and World buffs much better, and Might is only melee attack power in vanilla, so hunters could not benefit from it. Expect your Holy Paladins to be rolling with this rune for your chest. Last but not least, for the chest, we have Aegis. So this one is a bit strange. I almost wish they just went and changed the readout talent instead, but no other talents have changed in Season of Discovery, so it would have been a bit strange. If we get readout and Aegis side by side though, you can see the difference is Aegis increases block value by 30%, and makes it so melee and ranged attacks have a 10% chance to increase block chance by 30% for 10 seconds or for 5 blocks. Whereas with readout, you need to receive a critical strike in order to get that block chance bonus. Now, Protection Paladins and Warriors are the two tanks who don't get crit immunity from boss level monsters in their new runes in Season of Discovery, so the plate wielding tanks still may have to factor this into their gearing on the harder hitting content. I guess this rune is looking a bit more long term for the game mode, or maybe there is newer gear that has a bunch of defense on and you can still get crit immune quite easily. Oh, and also 30% block value
Level
is a
40 is
pretty
going to be
big
my
chunk.
favorite
Assuming there
bracket,
are some solid sources of block
or my
value to
least
scale
favorite. I
with on
don't
your
remember if
items,
you have to
Paladin
be
dungeon
41 to
grinding
get
or
Holy Shock.
boosting
I
should
think it's
very
40.
much be on the menu. On to our leg runes next, and we have some absolute bangers to cover here. First is, without a single doubt, the best raid-wide cooldown from Wrath of the Lich King, Divine Sacrifice. However, it's been modified for vanilla, so let's check it out.
Alright, some Divine
30%
Sac.
of damage taken by party members within 30 yards is redirected to the Paladin for 10 seconds. If the Paladin goes below 20% health, this effect will break, and the Paladin will gain 10% increased damage
Yeah, I
and
think it
healing
is
for
40,
10
because
seconds.
I remember being
Okay, so
really
that is not
excited for
bad.
level
In
40,
Wrath,
and I
it's
don't
notable
give a
that this
shit about the
ability
amount
gives the
because it's
Paladin
free.
two different buffs, one for the damage reduction and another for the damage transfer. You have to create a macro to cancel the damage transfer, as in Wrath of the Lich King, this buff is raid wide. So if you don't have bubble, the damage transfer basically just one-shots you. If
I
this is
kept track
one buff, you better
for
be
the
real
epic mount
careful about pressing
to
this
see how much I
ability if your
saved by
party is
doing the
about to take
Paladin
heavy
quest
damage.
instead of
Then
buying
again,
a
if you're able to
regular
break
mount,
it
and I
under the
saved
20%
like only
health
25
margin,
gold or
you get a bit
something.
of bonus damage and some extra healing for a little bit. It seems a bit risky and nowhere near as powerful as the Wrath version, as this is party only. Great for PvP though, as it's both a damage reduction effect and protection from long duration CC as well. Next we have, well, Tremor Totem to be honest, but for Paladins. Why is the Paladin version always better it seems? But just as Tremor Totem does, Inspiration Exemplar occasionally removes fear and sleep effects on party members, but instead of it being a physical item like a totem, it's just an aura around the Paladin. Again, for PvP, you can kill a Tremor Totem, then fear a Shaman real quick, but you can't turn this aura off. So certain CC effects will just be ineffective against Paladins who take this. I will say there is one big difference between this and Tremor Totem actually, and that's Tremor also removes charm effects, and despite charm effects being quite uncommon, that is a bonus for the Horde version. Up next is a big ability for Protection Paladins. It's a snap aggro tool, something to pull from range, and just a cool looking ability. Avenger's Shield. It seems from what I could find online, we're also getting an instant cast version of it too. I was thinking at the start this would be the TBC
That's
one,
pretty
which
cool.
for some reason had a cast time, which made it completely unusable during combat because when you're getting hit by enemies, you get spell knockback and you can't dodge, block or parry, so that was no good. But assuming it is instant, this is big for prop paladins. In vanilla, they desperately needed something or just anything to be able to pull from more than 10 yards away. Just watch out with this ability, sometimes it doesn't always bounce where you expect it to. It's a lot easier to chain pull than you would think, that's all I'm gonna say. Next is another one for the Ret enjoys, and that is Exorcist. Now Exorcism can be cast on any target and has a 100% crit chance versus undead or demons, which is okay. Exorcism is pretty mana heavy for the amount of damage that it causes. Guaranteeing a crit though perhaps makes this worth it, but as far as we know it doesn't scale with attack power effects. Still, as a wretch, you'll either take this or the following rune I'll talk about. Off topic here, but I hope later on one of the runes makes Hammer of Wrath usable in Season of Discovery. It's always been such a fun spell, but it's just so bad in vanilla it's unreal. There would have been no point putting a rune in for it yet though, because you don't get it to level 44. But next up we have Rebuke, and Retribution just got an interrupt. How about that? It appears to be a 10-second cooldown, 2-second lockout. This ability was from Kata originally, but is now an option for Rets in vanilla. Depending on how much mana you go through as a Ret, this will be a strong consideration for your glove runes that we know at the moment. Also, this is such a mind game in PvP, not knowing whether or not the other guy has an interrupt, and And do you need to fake cast or not? I wonder if add-ons will be able to read which runes you have in advance. Just a thought. And finally, we have our glove runes. We'll start with one of the most powerful talents from Wrath of the Lich King's Holy Paladin, Beacon of Light. Places a beacon on the target that copies all healing done to that target. This essentially straight up doubles your healing potential. Similar to Wrath, I imagine this thing will be on the main tank and will allow you to spread your heals across the raid a little more evenly rather than just always focusing on that one target. Very powerful rune for Holy Paladins though. They were already so good in vanilla, this is really pushing their power level. Next to retribution is Crusader Strike. Originally introduced in the Burning Crusade, this was the button that freed you from just auto attacking, and now it has an upside in that it regenerates a small bit of your max mana as well. This was the very first rune teased at BlizzCon, and as far as I know you'll be getting this at level 2. This is probably the only rune in the game I can say that for, but it's an ability, we all know what it does. It's just a simple instant attack and a button to feel good about pressing when it comes up. And our final paladin rune is Hand of Reckoning.
I don't know.
Its taunt for a
Crusader Strike
paladin
doesn't
in
really feel
vanilla
good to me.
only took
It
19
just feels like a normal weapon
years.
attack.
Better late than never though, right?
It doesn't
Also,
feel
when you
any
have this
different than
rune,
Slam.
Righteous Fury threat is increased to 80%. You gain mana equal to 25% of the amount you receive as healing from others, and when below 35% health, you take 20% less damage. So if you add improved Righteous Fury on from your talents, Protection Paladins are going to be doing a bonus 130% holy damage threat. Yeah, so I'm thinking Prot AoE is going to be pretty good in Season of Discovery. Turning healing received from allies into mana is the fix that was implemented in TBC, and it now means that Prot Paladins are able to focus on spell power for threat, and defense, stamina, and so on for tankiness. This really is everything your Protection Paladin needs to succeed in vanilla. What is also worth a mention here is the protection tanking meta that did exist in Classic during 2019 and beyond. Basically, players found out you could spam Greater Blessing of Kings, and it would generate enough threat even to be able to main tank. The Greater Blessing of Kings spam just got a very big buff here, both from its Holy Threat modifier and the fact that protection essentially has infinite mana now if they are taking damage. Saying that, Greater Blessing of Kings is a level 60 spell, and we don't have any Greater Blessings at all until
Just
level
stand
52
there shouting,
with Might
"For the
and Wisdom at
king!
54.
For
But
all
I'm
the
just saying this
kings!
could be a thing, and you should expect people
From
to
lane to
experiment with it
Anduin!"
when we get to the 50 bracket in Season of Discovery. Anyways, let's cover some closing thoughts on the state of Paladin in Season of Discovery so far. Yeah, this class is insane. That is the summary. Rhett got Divine Storm and Crusader Strike on top of having Seal of Command proccing for extra damage, and depending on their mana bar, which hopefully won't run out, they should be doing much better as a whole. Holy got some of the most powerful abilities from Wrath of the Lich King. They were already in a great spot, and they just got so much better. You won't see the full extent of Holy's output to level 40 because they're missing some talents, such as Illumination. Nevertheless, if it's a playstyle you enjoy, it's been improved for sure. Protection seems as though it's the biggest winner for me. Mana problems have been solved, you have a way to pull from range, you have a taunt, you have better threat generation. It just ticks all of the boxes. You do still have to invest 11 points into the Holy Tree to get Consecration in vanilla. It's not a baseline ability, but that's something you'll be more than happy to do. I'm expecting to see a metric ton of players on the Retribution Paladin though. It's one of those specs in the game that when it's even moderately good, it's overplayed. I also hope to see plenty of people trying out the new Protection Paladin. Mixing an actual protection tank that works with vanilla itemization should be interesting to see how you can max out either mitigation stats or spell power for threat. Holy Paladin remains very good, and healer mains will definitely be wanted both for their throughput and the new utility spells in Season of Discovery. But
Nice, I
those
got
are
a
just
card.
my thoughts on the runes we have for the Paladin in Season of Discovery so far. What do you think of them at this early stage, and are there any spell or ability interactions you're looking forwards to trying out? Let me know below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in,
Thanks,
and I'll
Willie.
see you all in the next one very soon.
Come on. Let me fight the guy. Alright. Willie's channel. Shaman class changes.
The Horde exclusive Shaman in vanilla World of Warcraft over the years has experienced many different identities and specializations. One-shotting people as enhancement in battlegrounds with Wind Fury, blasting from the back lines as elemental, supporting allies as a healer with Chain Heal and Wind Fury Totem, and even tanking now and again. This class really has so many directions you could take it in, so believe me when I say Blizzard really had their options open when they wanted to decide what to do with the Shaman in this season. But with plenty to cover and arguably one of the most exciting classes at this early stage, let's check out the known runes for the Shaman in Season of Discovery. First, a really quick shout out to Star Trek Fleet Command for the continued support on the channel. They're currently celebrating their 5th anniversary, and you can use code WARPSPEED to claim in-game rewards. To find out more, click the link in the description and download the game for free on either PC or mobile. So getting straight into it, we already have essentially a new class identity for the Shaman, as we can see there is a rune planned for dual wield specialization. This will increase chance to hit with weapons while dual wielding, as well as spells by 5%. Also, Storm Strike will now hit with main hand and offhand, when we eventually get it a level 40 that is. Well, if you've watched my videos for a bit, you already know I want to see Blizzard try and make two-hand enhance feel more relevant, instead of just putting dual wield into the game. And judging from the many posts online about this, I think a few other people do as well. I reckon you'll get your two-handed runes eventually, enhancement enjoyers, just not for the 25 bracket. The hopes is that two-handed can compete though, because if you look at classes that can dual wield in vanilla, such as Rogue or Warrior, they tend to be pretty good at this doing DPS thing. Also, I'll assume you'll learn dual wielding at your trainer now, because it's not in the talent
I'm
tree
probably
or
going to
on
play
this rune.
mage.
Either way, that's a lot of hit on both melee and spells for
If it
free,
doesn't
so
feel
when we
good,
finally
then,
get
you
Storm
know, it's
Strike at
only
level
level
40, we
25. I
should
can
start
get
really seeing
level
the benefits
25
of
in,
this.
like,
The next chest rune is another
3
step
hours,
towards a
probably
newer
4
class
hours.
identity for the Shaman. This one is for
No, it's a little
tanking.
bit more
So
than
each
that.
time
Like,
you block, you gain
one
maximum
play
mana
session,
and
maybe
gain
like
armor
8
equal to
hours.
30% of your shield's value, stacking up to 5 times. So we're talking a 150 bonus armor value from your shield after having blocked 5 times. Also, you gain 10% increased chance to block, and your block value is increased by 15%. The big takeaway here is A, you want a beefy shield with plenty of armor. There are some shields in the game that have extra stat allocation as armor too.
I'm
Maybe there's
hoping they
even
put
new
dual
ones in the
spec in.
BFD
If they don't
raid.
put dual
And I
spec
found this
in,
too while I was
I
looking
don't
up
know if I'm
shields.
going to
There
do
is a level
mage
40
healer.
elite quest which you can start at 25. Horde only, which awards a shield that you will be able to equip at level 25,
I mean, all you have to
but it
do is
has
change
stats
the
as if it
runes,
were level
really, so it
40.
doesn't matter,
This
because
level
I
25
would
phase is
probably
going to
want
be
to play
so
Arcane
interesting for gearing.
anyway.
Anyway, the second point is you want decent block chance so this stacks up fast and you're consistently getting maximum mana back. Block value is just a flat amount of reduced damage taken when you block, so it tends to be a bit less important. Overall, this is a very good start for the Shaman tank dream. We have some even better runes to come later though. Next we have Overload, and wow, this is a very powerful version of Overload. Usually in Season of Discovery, when we see a talent from later expansions, it's been toned down a bit, but this one is even better. It gives all of Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Chain Heal, Healing Wave, and Lava Burst a 33% chance to cast a similar spell at half effectiveness on the target. Overload for Chain Heal just seems extremely powerful. A 1 in 3 chance to get an extra chain heal straight up might make Resto Shaman one of the best raid healers on the Horde side. Imagine combining this with Nature's Swiftness too. There is a small problem of not getting chain heal until level 40 though, but even early into the season, just a second healing wave cast is already good. The real big deal here though is for Elemental, who will have a chance to have their Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, and Lava Burst overload. Now you don't get Chain Lightning until level 32, so we'll have a little bit of a wait for that, but Lava Burst being on overload is crazy. And I guess spoilers for Elemental later, yes, you're going to be getting Lava Burst. We'll get to that soon though. Also, can you imagine this for PvP? Shaman could already global you, and now they just got a much higher chance to do so. The final chest rune to cover is Healing Rain. So you
Luna,
select an
get
area
out of there.
15 yards around a targeted player, and heal all of the target's party every second over 20 seconds. Healing Rain feels like one of those shaman abilities they have had forever, but it didn't come into the game until Cataclysm, and during that expansion it ticked every 2 seconds over a 10-second duration, so our vanilla version in that regard is in some ways a lot more powerful. I'm going to assume it can't crit, however, because similar ground-targeted effects do not do so, but if there's a group of allies that are stacked and aren't expected to move all that much, this seems like a pretty good heal to throw down. Now onto the leg runes, starting with Ancestral Guidance. For 10 seconds, 25% of damage is converted onto healing for 3 nearby party members, and 100% of healing is converted to damage on the most recent Flame Shock target. This is another talent from a later version of the game, but as usual it's been changed quite a bit. The damage converted to heal just seems okay. There aren't too many situations where you specifically need 3 party members getting loads of heals, so may not be taken too often for this reason. Converting 100% of heals to damage though, I'm not gonna lie, that's a lot. Imagine in PvP you're hitting a Resto Shaman, and they pop Ancestral Healing and then Nature Swiftness a Healing Wave, and if that crits they're gonna hit you back for about 50 to 75% of your health. That is pretty spicy, and you don't expect to get near
It
enough
looked pretty
global by a
cool
healer,
watching
that's for
that
sure.
happen in
All in all, Ancestral Guidance seems like a bit of a niche flex
on
pick,
S-Fan stream.
as the leg
Oh, good,
runes
the
have some
dragon's
real
here.
powerhouses available. Next we have Earth Shield, protects the player, reducing channeling or cast time loss by 30% and causing attacks against them to heal a small amount. An interesting option for both PvP and PvE. I'm going to assume one Dispel removes one charge, similar to how it was in TBC, instead of Wrath where one Dispel removes the whole ability. The reason I think this is because they've halved the number of charges down from 6, as it was in TBC, to 3 here. Also, Priest and Shaman can both remove 2 magic effects at once through offensive dispels in vanilla. All the same, it is very solid dispel protection, and with how many effects are magical, often including consumables, this seems quite good. Reducing the loss of cast time is something that all casters would benefit from. For example, a Warlock with Earth Shield and Talented Drain Life would suffer 0 channeling loss on that ability. In PvE, it's a nice bit of passive healing on any target. You would have to be refreshing it quite often though. Now we have Way of Earth. This is the big rune you'll be taking to give your shaman some real tanking ability. While Rockbiter is active on your main hand, you deal 100% increased threat, have 30% more health, take 10% reduced damage, and 6% less chance to be crit by melee attacks. Earth Shock becomes your taunt, has a separate cooldown from other shocks, and is changed to a melee range ability. So yeah, that's pretty much everything you could have wanted from a tanking stance, to be honest. Maybe even on easier bosses there is a dual-wield Way of Earth build, kind of like Fury Prot from vanilla. After all, tanking in vanilla is all about threat generation. Doesn't matter if you don't take any damage if you can't hold threat. And with how much every class has been buffed, tanks are going to need to put in overtime. Common threat was already not too bad, between Earthshock and Rockbiter having bonus threat modifiers, Fire Nova for AoE and all of that good stuff. Mind you, Shaman will get another AoE tool, which we'll talk about in a moment. Finally on the legs we have Shamanistic Rage. So if you aren't tanking, this seems as though it's the big winner for the leg runes. It reduces all damage taken by 20%, and you regenerate mana based upon your strongest stat, between attack power, healing power, or spell power over 15 seconds. Now at level 25, as good as this may seem, it's not going to be giving you much mana back. Even if you had 100 spell power at 25, which, unless there's a lot of crazy new items, you won't, that would only be 150 mana regenerated. So to be honest, early game seems more of a defensive tool, but this will scale well as we progress later into the game, and of course is another very nice tool for the shaman in PvP. Finally we have the gloves. Molten Blast is a new ability which is aimed more towards a tanking
This
style
one
of
looks cool.
gameplay.
This
It
is the
blasts
Cone
all
of
enemies
Cold
in front of
ability,
you
I
for
think,
fire
right?
damage and causes high threat. Flame Shock periodic damage also has a chance to reset this ability. So that is your AoE threat for tanking ticked off then. It seems as though the Shaman tank has a very well-rounded toolkit. Possible uses for enhancement on AoE or dungeon-focused gameplay, but that bonus threat modifier might be a problem for them. Or maybe for enhance, you'd rather take Lava Lash. Another recognizable ability from Wrath of the Lich King, instantly deals offhand damage that does bonus damage if imbued with Flame Tongue. This would seem to be catered more towards a melee DPS enhancement dual wield kind of gameplay, but there is no reason you couldn't take this on a tank if you're dual wielding, and either you just don't need Molten Blast or AoE threat, or perhaps there is another tank doing the AoE role, and you just care about blasting main tank threat as much as possible. Remember, Way of Earth is gonna work as long as those rock bites are on your main hand weapon. Someone needs to come up with a name for this Fury prot version of Enhance. If I know vanilla tanking, I know threat is king, and if enhancement can, they will be dropping their shields now and again. Moving on to Water Shield, this one will be more often than not for the Resto Shaman enjoyers. It grants 1% max mana per 5 seconds, and a further 4% of your max mana when you're hit. Though this very well may be good for other specs too, if mana is that much of an issue. But honestly, outside of restoration gameplay, the biggest use is probably just going to be to smooth out leveling, as that's one of the areas of gameplay where you're constantly getting hit, and can really maximize the bonuses from this. And last but not least is Lava Burst. Yes, Shamans in vanilla are getting Lava Burst, and it can overload. There is no way this is not OP in PvP, by the way. And pretty amazing in PvE as well. You know how Elemental Shaman's level 40 talent, Elemental Mastery, guarantees a crit, and that is such a powerful effect that it is their final talent? Well, what if you just guaranteed a crit on a basic spell? Surely that will be fine, right? Also, I'm just saying you will be able to Elemental Mastery and get a double crit from Lava Burst into Earth Shock without Flame Shock up. Assuming Lava Burst does do more damage than Chain Lightning, that is. The interaction of this double crit from Elemental Mastery was not due to spell batching. It was an intended gameplay mechanic that got removed in the Burning Crusade. So yeah, this ability is going to be
Give me the
insane for
Light
the
Forge
Shaman. They're going to be
chest,
an absolute
Dragon's
terror in all areas of content. So let's get on to some overall thoughts for the Shaman and their runes so far. The tanking set seems to have gotten everything it could have asked for. Mana regen, more armor, bonus threat, a taunt, AoE threat. It seems genuinely good. What I am excited to see though is whether a Fury prot type enhancement tank will arise as we progress into the season. As for DPS enhancement, I will admit I wanted to see two-handed enhance.
That's
All the
the
same,
mage
dual wield
robes.
tends to be fairly good DPS in this game. I don't think they will be as
Okay,
amazing as
now I
some
can
other
read
dual
this
wield
quest
specs
and
as
see
they
what
are
it
lacking
actually
spell
wanted of me.
damage scaling on a bunch of abilities, but if you do enjoy that dual wield enhancement gameplay, then you can look forwards
Frost
to that.
Whisper's rune.
Oh, and don't forget, you don't have Wind Fury at level 25, so you're going to have to find a Feral Druid for that. Resto seems solid.
Yeah,
Load Chain
the
Heal is
chest
hurting
is
them
the
for their
last
level
piece I need.
25 bracket, but once we hit 40, Overload Chain Heal is going to be overpowered. I have no doubt about that. And Elemental feels as though it is the big winner here with Overload and Lava Burst. I will say, however, Elemental is missing so many good talents at level 25, including cast time reduction on spells, bonus crit on spells, and of course, Elemental Mastery. So I think they'll feel quite slow to play, and you really won't get a good sense of how they will be yet. But once we hit 40, you could add no new further runes to Elemental, and it is just one of the best PvP specs in the game, and should also do very respectably in PvE. I also like overall how there is so much flexibility between these Shaman runes as a whole. With some other classes there are rune packages which you would only really ever play together. The Shaman has options and choices, some of which may not be entirely obvious yet. So from that point of view, this is why I think Shaman is so interesting so far in Season of Discovery. But those are just my initial impressions on the runes we know for the Shaman at this very early stage. Is there any spec in particular you're looking forwards to playing, and what do you think about them? Let me know below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you on the next one very soon.
Here's the secret tech to how you get to uh, Skullomance.
We got to talk about whose fault this really is. Probably like 80% Miz, 10% Emmy. Here we go.
Oh, Peter Park's down.
The Horde exclusive Shaman
Let's watch the mage
When you
one.
think of classes that would benefit from updates in vanilla World of Warcraft, Mage is not exactly at the top of that list. I like to call them the first real hero class of World of Warcraft. After all, they are the fastest leveler through AoE farming. They're the best gold maker by an absolute mile. A mage can pull an AoE down entire dungeons, whilst other classes would struggle with 3 to 4 mobs at once. In player versus player, they are extremely dominant due to their mix of powerful CC and burst, and in raiding they are the top performing caster, and they can make themselves free food and water, and they can teleport around the world, or just chill in a major city and sell portals to others. The mage in vanilla is an absolute monster of a class, and amazing at, quite literally, everything. So how is Season of Discovery going to build on this class? Well, for a start, the mage is going to be getting an entirely new role in World of Warcraft that it's never experienced before. That of a healer. As for how good it will be, we don't know that yet, but either way, let's get into it and talk about the mage runes that are currently known in Season of Discovery. I want to cover the mage healing package first, as the spells really fit together with one another. First, we have Regeneration. This is your chest rune. This applies a moderate heal over 3 seconds and then marks the target for 30 seconds with a temporal beacon. 100% of arcane damage done will be converted to healing and divided up among all targets affected by a temporal beacon. Now, it's
So
important
what I
to
wonder
note
about
this
that
ability
is like
is
how
channeled
many
as well,
can you
as in the
realistically
heal over
juggle?
time portion is applied similar to how Mistweaver monks use Soothing Mist, and it appears also to not have a
Like
cooldown.
that's gonna be
Now, you may be
super
thinking here, this
badass
is
in
atonement
10
healing
man.
that priests get in Cataclysm, and yes, it is quite similar to that in that you
It's
are
gonna be
dealing
fucking
damage
broken
to
in
then
5
heal
man,
your
so you're gonna be able
allies.
to
But this is basically the
duo 5
Chronomancer
mans with it.
healer type class fantasy, and it exists in Classic before Retail. The potential healing with this also seems very good, especially in AoE situations. AoE is not capped in any form in vanilla, so if you say beaconed a paladin tank who is just blasting AoE threat, and then pressed Arcane Explosion, if he's got 20 or so mobs hitting him, he's just going to be immortal. His health bar will go back to full with every single Arcane Explosion you cast. Oh, and you're still a mage pressing Arcane Explosion, so you're gonna be doing some great damage as well. You will be double dipping from threat though, from topping the heals and damage, so that could be a bit of a problem. But just before this video went out, I managed to find a rather big change to regeneration, and I'm assuming mass regeneration too, which are definitely worth talking about. The changes are after you cast the regeneration spell, your fire and frost spell damage will be reduced by 50% for 5 minutes, and you won't be able to use Ice Block. I'm assuming these two changes are targeted at PvP, where otherwise the mage will be able to reset kind of infinitely and always be at full health. On the more PvE side of this spell, it seems as though the healing done from arcane damage has been lowered from 100% to 40%, so that is already quite the sizable nerf. I'm assuming this was done for AoE reasons, as I'd already highlighted, but this is also going to affect single target quite a bit. I still think this will be reasonably powerful, you know, but we'll have to see how it plays out on live servers. I can only assume from Blizzard's testing, though, that this ability was broken beyond belief to be changed this much. There is also an AoE version of this spell called Mass Regeneration, which will go on your leg rune. This appeared to have a 6-second cooldown from what I could tell. Mass Regeneration heals and marks players within the target's party in a 15-yard range, and applies a beacon for 15 seconds. So it is quite a small AoE, you're going to need people to stack for this, and the beacon is also half the duration of the single target spell. It's basically what Power Word Radiance is for Discipline. This is your big setup for heavy damage coming into your whole party. Again, this seems very strong when paired up with AoE pulls, particularly in dungeons or say, I don't know, 10-man raiding environments. But what if you care more about single target heals, or you just don't have enough things to AoE? I mean, in Classic, it's usually the case that you do care about healing one target more so than your entire party. Well, that's where you have a bit of choice as the mage healer, in which rune you take on your gloves. First we have Rewind Time. This heals a beacon target for all the damage they've taken over the past 5 seconds. It really depends on the cooldown of this spell as for how viable of a choice it may be, and it can't just be randomly taken as a heal either, as you or another mage will needed to have beaconed the target before this can be cast.
Can't
This
use it
sounds
on
good
a
for when
target
there's
that
going to
didn't
be
have a
large
beacon, but
predictable
you can
spikes
have
of damage. maybe from
You can
breath
have
attacks from bosses,
the one
or
that just
encounters where the tank will be
AoE applies
stunned.
the beacon.
However, there is another spell, one that you will be a bit more familiar with, which can be applied to your gloves as well, and that is a modified version of Arcane Blast. Similar to how it's always been, it will stack up its damage and mana cost up to a total of 4 times. But this new version will also cause you to do bonus healing as well. A max stack Arcane Blast will be 700% extra mana, 60% more damage caused, and 60% more heals. I mean, maybe this is just straight up good enough to be part of a DPS focused arcane build now. And as for arcane missiles, even in Season of Discovery it looks like they can't catch a break. Maybe they'll be getting a rune later on though. Also, Arcane Power, the capstone talent in Arcane, makes spells cost 30% more and for you to do 30% more damage. Is that 30% cost increase just the baseline cost? Or is max stack Arcane Blast with Arcane Power going to make your Arcane Blast cost 910% more mana? Because that sounds kind of expensive, don't you think? Either way, that's kind of the mage healing package here. It looks very good in AoE situations. It's probably going to generate a ton of threat though. Saying that, when I think about it, Arcane does get 40% less threat through talents, but will this also affect their heals? Is the spell school of Arcane healing Arcane? I mean, maybe, I guess that makes sense, but we don't know yet. Anyways, let's get back around to the runes that will be applied to your chest, as the non-healer mages will also have plenty to look forwards to. First up is Fingers of Frost. This is a really
Frost
powerful
Mage
talent
looks
that
like
was
it's going to be
introduced in the
good.
Burning Crusade. It causes your chill effects to have a chance to make your next 2 spells act as if the target were frozen. Okay, so unless you are a healing mage, the other runes on this row basically don't exist if this rune works the way I think it will. I went and tested whether Fingers of Frost could proc from slow immune targets. I did have to do this on live RAF servers on a level 70 mage. Maybe it works differently in vanilla, I don't know. But Fingers of Frost was still proccing as normal. Now Frost is already an amazing leveling spec, great for dungeons, and is played at the start of endgame in vanilla due to tons of mobs being fire immune. Also again, if this is working how it does in later expansions, your Frostbite talent will always proc Fingers of Frost as well. So one of the best PvP classes in the game just got way better. And wait to hear about what mages will get later. This gets even better than this. So yeah, this rune is going to be very, very powerful. For what it's worth, I think the other 2 runes in this row are playable, but just later on when stat scaling has improved a bit. Burnout increases the spell crit chance with all spells by 15%, but casted spells cost 1% more of your base mana. That seems like a pretty easy trade-off. 15% crit for a small mana increase? Fire mages are gonna love this one once the spec starts to pick up with some later game gearing. Crit as a stat really starts to get better the more of it you have, and with talents such as Ignite, I can see this eventually being the rune that's taken in this row. Finally for the chest runes is Enlightenment. 10% more damage dealt when over 70% mana, 10% more mana regeneration when below 30% mana. This one kind of has an arcane DPS vibe to it, and it will
That
stack
one
with the
seems
arcane
pretty good to me.
meditation talent for a total of 25% mana regen whilst casting when you're under 30% mana. That's not
Put
half
on your
bad to be
spirit
honest.
staff,
Remember
you
in
know,
vanilla,
ask for an
evocation
innervate.
scales with your spirit too. Maybe your arcane mage DPSs out there should start theory crafting a build that wants plenty of spirit, so that they can keep those arcane blasts going. If fights are as short as they usually are in vanilla, it has potential. Moving on to the leg runes now, we have Living Flame. It kind of reminds you of Dreadflame from Archimond a little bit, doesn't it? A flame that moves towards the target, leaving fire in its wake that deals damage, lasting 20 seconds.
That's just
It also
frozen
says
orb.
spellfire damage. That should be fire plus arcane, which means this rune won't be dead content in Molten Core. Presumably. A base damage of 42 is not half bad considering it's hitting all targets. That's about halfway between Arcane Explosion rank 1 and 2 damage-wise, but it's going to tick up to 20 times. I could see this being the pick on AoE farming or dungeon content for sure. Next we have Arcane Surge. This is a big single target nuke for your Arcane mages, or maybe a big heal for your Arcane healers. It gains up to 300% increased damage based on your mana remaining. So imagine every 10% of your mana mana that you have unspent, this is going to add 30% to Arcane Surge's damage. After that, you gain a massive amount of mana regen for the following 8 seconds. This is a modification of a talent from Dragonflight, and I believe is the most up-to-date spell that's been added to Season of Discovery. In Dragonflight, it's a casted spell too, which is a big nuke that refills your mana bar afterwards. Say goodbye to Pom Pyro, say hello to Pom Arcane Surge, maybe? Doesn't quite have the same ring to it. Still, it's a versatile spell that could act as a big nuke in PvP, a massive heal, or just a mana regeneration tool. Looking forward to see what kind of mage builds this fits best into. Finally, for the leg runes is something that will be more familiar to us, Icy Veins. I believe this spell is the same in both TBC and Wrath, 20% spell casting speed and no spell pushback for 20 seconds. Having no spell power pushback is very OP for vanilla in PvP. All casts get pushed back infinitely as long as something is hitting you in vanilla, and now you can just ignore that for 20 seconds. And it's got 20% casting speed on it too, that's pretty great as well. Imagine hunters using Broken Tooth in PvP will be griefing themselves against mages now, since you can ignore casting knockback with Icy Veins, and Fingers of Frost will proc more from the faster attacks. Unless you can arcane shot off Icy Veins, that is, and given that it's a magic buff, you should be able to. But now we're on to the gloves, with only 2 runes left to cover since the other 2 were related to the arcane healer style for the most part. Firstly, Living Bomb makes its way to Classic. Whether you associate this spell more with Baron Geddon or the Wrath of the Lich King Fire Mage, it's a spell that's been in the WoW universe for a long time. In Vanilla, however, there is no hot streak talent, so don't think you're going to be getting instant cast Pyroblast. Also, periodic effects do not crit. I'm just saying if this could crit, you could Fingers of Frost proc it, and, well, that would be something, wouldn't it? Still, if enemies are living for over 12 seconds, which might be a tall order in Vanilla to be honest, this is going to put up some really impressive numbers on AoE. Also, if you're AoE leveling, this is just the dream talent to get hold of. Mages already have so many ways to slow enemies, and now you can just run around them in a circle spamming Living Bomb. It should really be strong for that style of play. And I'd probably save the best for last here, Ice Lance. This just has to be overpowered for vanilla in all areas of content. If you look at what mages got for PvP,
Ice
they
Lance
got
lets you
Fingers of
run
Frost,
around
Icy
and
Veins, and
just
Ice
spam the
Lance.
key.
Those are some enormous buffs, which will ensure the mage remains a very popular pick in this area of content. Imagine a melee's hitting you, they proc Frostbite, you get 2 Fingers of Frost, you can Ice Lance them twice into a Nova, and then Frostbolt Ice Lance, and hey, you've just pretty much won any fights in the game. For PvE, assuming that Frostbolt will be proccing Fingers of Frost on slow immune targets, this also seems exceptionally strong, and also very mana efficient, which is never a bad thing in vanilla either. I think this is one of those spells which is a bit too flexible to make sense in vanilla, but hey, we will see how it goes. Maybe it's been tuned down quite heavily, to the point where it doesn't feel so overpowered. And that is the mage
No, it's
so
going to be the
far
best
in
spell in the
Season
whole
of
game.
Discovery. So let's finish up with some closing thoughts on everything. The healing package seems exceptionally strong on AoE content, and reasonable on single target, possible threat generating machine, which is not ideal. Frost Mage has got some of the best possible talents and abilities Blizzard could have picked from later expansions. This spec will be nasty in PvP, and PvE too, assuming it works how I think it will. The Arcane DPS spec seems interesting and is where the big theory crafting will be done. With short enough fights, maybe it does become the go-to. Also, there's not many enemies that are immune to Arcane in vanilla compared to the other 2 spell schools. The fire option seems solid, but fire as a spec really needs that extra crit, which you start to see much later in the game, like AQ 40 levels of later. And since we're going to be starting at level 25, it might be some time till you see fire mages being popular. But that is just when I think from having checked out the runes we know at the moment. What do you reckon about the state of the mage heading into Season of Discovery? Are you planning to try out the Chronomancer type healing build, or will you be sticking with a more traditional DPS role? Let me know below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you on the next one very soon.
So yeah, definitely gonna try the mage healing if it's a vastly different spec than arcane damage, probably not. I'm pretty sure I saw the gladiator stances in.
The priest in vanilla
This is
World of
not where I need to
Warcraft
go.
was
I
a
need to go
class
to
that had its
Raz.
identity cut in half. On one side you have the light, where you played as a healer. This was an area where the priest excelled. Their wide toolkit covered strong single target heals, heals over time, and even AoE heals. And where there is light, there must be shadow. However, this side of the priest toolkit found way less viability in vanilla. Shadow had a lot of problems between debuff caps, general damage output, and of course a mana bar which will be spent within the space of a minute. So suffice to say, I'm interested to see how they're going to build on Priest's healing identity in Season of Discovery, but Shadow is what really needs the most help to see more widespread gameplay. Also, it appears you may now be able to choose which Priest racial abilities you want. There have been several new buffs found called Secrets of, a race name, and Anointed by a race name, which connect with the races which Priest can be. Alun of course being Night Elf, Undeath Undead, Light Human or Dwarf, and Lower Troll. I can tell you right now, Dwarf is going to be pretty popular if this is indeed a racial swap. But maybe new synergies appear that favour a different race. Maybe Star Shards from Night Elf becomes overpowered. Who knows? So with that being said, let's make a start on the runes which are currently known for the priest. And we'll begin with the chest runes. First up is Strength of Soul, making your single target casted heals reduce the remaining duration on Weakened Soul by 4 seconds. Weakened Soul is of course that debuff you get when you power word shield someone. It lasts 15 seconds
That's
normally,
pretty cool. You can
so
make it
more
so
or
you
less after
can
getting 2 single target
possibly
heals, this debuff with
refresh
Strength of Soul
the
will
shield
have nearly
before it
fallen off.
breaks.
Now in PvP this is very strong, but in PvE and vanilla, our word shield isn't anywhere as near as good as it is in Wrath. Also, warrior and druid tanks cannot generate rage from damage taken if damage is being absorbed. Don't forget about that in vanilla as well. If you wanted single target heals on a tank, you'd probably still just downrank a different spell, not use power word shield on cooldown. This is good in PvP though, no doubt about that. Next is
Okay, did I do what I
Serendipity, a
need for
very
this?
modified version of it at that. Your
Yes,
flash
now
heals
come back
reduce
to
the
him.
cast time of your next single target heal or prayer of healing by 20% for 20 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. I don't know if this really changes how much you go about playing the priest as a healer though. Flash heal is a good emergency cast if somebody needs healing as soon as possible, but it's also quite expensive because of this. Still, even if you are throwing out the odd flash heal here and there, it will be making your next big heal go out that bit faster. Maybe it's not that bad in PvE actually, it's just runes which speed up gameplay can often lead to mana issues. Next is Void Plague, the "Mum, can we have Vampiric Touch? No, there is already Vampiric Touch at home," of damage over time effects. Not sure whether it's casted as Vampiric Touch has been either, we can't really tell at this early stage. Either way, it should be another good way for Shadow Priest to run out of mana, sorry I mean deal damage. Could also be good on single target, and is more AoE friendly or cleave focused than the other runes on this row. Next is Twisted Faith, a talent that first appears in Cataclysm. It makes Mind Blast and Mind Flay deal 20% increased damage to a target with Shadow Word Pain. A pretty simple single target DPS increase. Don't forget in vanilla, Mind Blast generates bonus threat, because why not? That's vanilla for you. So make sure the tank has some threat built up, because if a buffed Mind Blast crits on your first few globals,